Welcome to Spectrum Sundays. I am Francesca D'Alessandro, Miss Thousand Islands of New York, serving my community through AAA appreciation and awareness for autism. I am also a speech-language pathologist with a master's degree from the University at Buffalo.
And I am Megan Sinisi, Miss Pennsylvania 2021 and the founder of a nonprofit organization for autism titled From a New Perspective. I am also a speech-language pathologist with a master's degree from the University of Missouri.
Everyone deserves to feel accepted and included in every space that they walk in. Our series aims to inspire you to advocate for yourself and on behalf of your loved ones. And we are so grateful that you're here with us today.
Alyssa Bohm is a high school cross-categorical teacher in Wisconsin. She studied at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, receiving her degree in special education. Alyssa has been a part of the Miss America organization for 8 years. She held 4 local titles and won the coveted title and job of Miss Wisconsin 2019 and 2020. She advocates for individuals with disabilities with her initiative Embracing Special Needs, Building Inclusive Communities. Alyssa has been advocating for those with disabilities since a very young age, as her Aunt Cindy has an intellectual disability and inspired her to provide more opportunities for those with disabilities. She has implemented many inclusive programs, has been a state ambassador for Special Olympics of Wisconsin, and is also a current state board member for the Special Olympics of Wisconsin. Even though Alyssa is now a former state title holder, her advocacy work for people with disabilities will continue in many ways. Thank you so much for being with us today, Alyssa, and congratulations on your year of service as Miss Wisconsin.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been crazy to think that I had 1 year, but 2 years on top of that. But thank you so much.
You're welcome. Very unique opportunity, I'm sure, especially that you had that extended year of service. And last month, you actually passed on your title, but your impact through your advocacy work will, of course, continue and last for years to come. So you mentioned briefly about your background, but could you share a little bit more specifically about how and why you first became an ally to the disability community?
So I mentioned a little bit in that introduction when you asked for one that all of this is inspired by my Aunt Cindy, who has an intellectual disability. So really, I've been around people with disabilities my entire life, ever since I was born. And as a child, my Aunt Cindy was always around for events and vacations and things like that. And I just saw her as Aunt Cindy and my friend, someone I enjoyed spending time with. So I never really thought of her as someone who was different than other people. I also had a babysitter when I was younger, and her son had Down syndrome. So I've been around many different people who have different types of disabilities and never saw them as people who were different than, as you would say, a normal person. But I started to realize that people were treated differently who had disabilities when I got older, when I was in high school, and I saw that people were made fun of for who they were. And I wanted to change that. And I also saw the way that my Aunt Cindy grew up, in the fact that my dad's parents, my Aunt Cindy is his sister, they died at a very young age. So she then lived with another family member, and that family member didn't really see the potential that she had to be an independent adult. And I saw her frustrations growing up as a child, seeing that she wasn't able to communicate her needs and the things that she wanted to do independently. And that's another thing that I wanted to provide for individuals with disabilities as I got older, is showing people that they do have the opportunity to be independent and to be successful. And so it kind of started from there. And the first thing that I did was I was the co-creator of the Sparkle Squad, which is a cheerleading and dance team. It's a nationally known organization that provides opportunities for girls with disabilities to be a part of their teams. And so that was the first step. And then ever since then, it just kind of tumble affected into many different other opportunities that I've had now today.
No pun intended.
Yes.
Definitely talk a little bit more about that later, but I just want to recognize how unique your perspective in all of this is, because you get to see your Aunt Cindy, who is a different generation than your own, who faced a lot of different challenges that maybe current generations might not have to face. But it was really great that you were able to recognize all of the strengths within your aunt and your other family members with disabilities, because that's because Megan and I are speech language pathologists, and that's all we try to do is really play on the strengths of each individual and help them succeed in their own way, whatever success means to them. So you are already doing great things for your community, and I really want to touch on the Special Olympics and your role of being state ambassador. So what does that job entail for you? What are the responsibilities? What does your average day look like?
Sure. Well, I will backtrack on how that even happened for me. So before I won Miss Wisconsin, I was the co-creator of the football team that we had at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater for the UW Special Olympics college organization. So I co-created that organization with another individual, and I really wanted to start a football camp, which we don't have a football camp for Special Olympics athletes in Wisconsin. And that was a huge success. We had a lot of athletes that were a part of it, and it went on for, I think, 3 or 4 years before I had some exposure from the news. And I had a reporter come out, and he is actually a current board member for Special Olympics of Wisconsin. And he then gave me the opportunity to be on the board. So I was on the board of directors for Special Olympics before this opportunity of being an ambassador for them happened, which then opened up so many more doors for me when wanting to become Miss Wisconsin and expanding programs for people with disabilities, which the Unified Champion Schools program, which is the program I was an ambassador for, is what I really wanted to do as Miss Wisconsin. So going into my last year of competing, one of my goals as a title holder is to promote this program, which is all about creating inclusivity within our school environments, not only teaching people about how to be nice to one another, but how we can be leaders for one another through different activities, through different fundraising efforts, and just talking more about it. So what I did was I created this proposal after I won Miss Wisconsin, and I talked to the Special Olympics board and said, hey, I now won Miss Wisconsin. I really want to continue to promote Special Olympics because my Aunt Cindy was a part of Special Olympics. So I know how influential and important this program is for people with disabilities. And I told them that I want to go to I wanted to go to every single school in Wisconsin, but I don't think I would have had time for that. So I narrowed it down to, my goal was to get to 50 schools, and I wanted to promote this program. And the goal was to sign on schools so that they would become a Unified Champion school and show more inclusivity within their school environments. So they financially paid for my appearances to go to these schools. And I did my interactive presentation where I had kids come up and they would do a hula hoop activity, because I'm a hula hooper. I love hula hooping. I've been hula hooping since I was little. But I have kids come up and they do the hula hoops, whatever abilities they have. It doesn't matter if they can hula hoop 12 hula hoops or they can just do one. So it kind of, then we talk about different people with abilities and how we should be celebrating those abilities. Some people might be able to achieve certain things, and some people might need some assistance with that, but we still are cheering them on and providing them with support. So that was a part of it. And then we also went into the nitty-gritty part of talking about how to become a Unified Champion school. And it was really successful until COVID hit. But then I was able to do some things virtually with Unified Champion schools. But that was a huge, huge goal of mine when becoming Miss Wisconsin, was promoting Unified Champion schools. And still to this day, on the board, I am constantly advocating for that program. We just had our board meeting Friday, and I was talking about the different ways that we can be implementing this program and how we can be getting into the schools.
Well, I first and foremost need to acknowledge how special the Special Olympics is and how it creates amazing opportunities for individuals that may not otherwise have access to being active in their community and growing through what sports can teach us. So it's very important, the work that you're doing, and just to allow that opportunity for people to be in a comfortable environment and learn how to grow and develop different skills. It's amazing. I'm a part of the Special Olympics Pennsylvania, so I've seen firsthand how important that kind of program is. And just to hear how much you've expanded it across the state of Wisconsin is just really incredible to hear. So in the Special Olympics, you're welcome. The Special Olympics is all about inclusion. And a big part of that as well is recognizing diversity. And like you said, there are different abilities among all of us. Mm-hmm. So that's a very important aspect of all three of our initiatives. We all have something related to empowering the disability community. So how have you incorporated this message into your advocacy outside of sports and outside of the Special Olympics?
I continue to talk to people on a regular basis. I mean, I'm a special ed teacher, so I do it in my everyday life every single day. And being on the board of directors outside of pageants and outside of everything else I do, but specifically being a teacher, I'm able to advocate for individuals who have disabilities, but also then teach the other students that I work with that are in those classrooms about how everyone is so much more alike than they are different. The student population that I work with, majority of them have learning disabilities. So they are in the regular ed classroom on a regular basis, but they still are looked at as different. And I don't think it's just my job to be providing them the education that they need. I think it's also my job to be an advocate for them and to be providing them that voice if they don't have it, and teaching many other students and also teachers about how we can be more inclusive within the classrooms and how we can have a better mindset about treating everyone equally.
And I have a follow-up question to that, actually. I think I was just listening to a podcast where you mentioned that you continued to be a teacher during your second term as Miss Wisconsin. Is that true?
Yes,
So
I did.
What was that experience like with being out in the community and then integrating that with your school environment? Was that a challenge for you, or was that just elevating it to the next level for you?
Well, first, normally, and I think every state's a little bit different, but in Wisconsin, you have to take a year off from your job or from school. And I fully understand why we do that now, since I have now taught full-time, been a full-time teacher, and was doing Miss Wisconsin, because they both are full-time jobs, and to give your 100% to them, they need to be separate. But I was very fortunate that I had that opportunity to be able to be Miss Wisconsin and also work and teach. But it was tough at times, but it was a great opportunity for me to continue to work with my students that I wanted to continue to work with. I started at a new school, so that was different for me. But I think it also gave me a better opportunity when talking about the Unified Champion Schools program and the fact that I was living it right in my present day of being a teacher. And that's what I usually talk about to teachers when I'm telling them about this program, is that, hey, I am a teacher. I've implemented this program in my own school, and this is how it's worked for me, and this is how it can work for you. Don't think it's going to be an extra step or any extra initiatives that you need to add on to your teaching. But I think it just gave me more opportunities to grow and to learn while balancing all the other things I was doing.
I think it goes to show how flexible and adaptable title holders really are, especially teachers too. But to handle all of those hats and responsibilities, kudos to you. Big round of applause, because that is no easy feat, especially during such a really difficult time of transition, not just for teachers, but for students too. And to have you as a very strong pillar of support for your students. Thank you for all that you do. And what's really awesome about interviewing people such as yourself is that this is a lifestyle, because creating equity is just one part of the overall topic of inclusion. And when you're living it every day and you see different aspects of your life come together, it's such a beautiful thing. So for our viewers and our listeners, what are some resources that you go to educate yourself either on autism or anything that you feel helps you with creating that inclusion?
Yeah, I think I've used a lot of different resources, especially when the pandemic hit and I needed to restructure how I was going to be promoting my social impact initiative, because I was no longer going to be able to go into schools. And I turned my teacher brain on immediately and thought, okay, let's get creative. Let's think about what we're going to do. And I started to do the disability simulations that I normally would do in a classroom online. And so what those kind of look like is I would have a group of students, or just I would do it on Instagram or whatever it is. And I'd have people get winter gloves, and they'd have to get pennies, and they'd lay them out on the table. And then I say, okay, we only have 1 minute to pick up as many pennies as we can. And so we're trying to pick up the pennies, and we have the winter gloves on, and it's obviously really difficult to do. And then once the minute is up, I like to have an open discussion about how people were feeling during the activity. Was it difficult? Were you having frustrations? What were some of the roadblocks that were happening during that activity? And so all of these motions and all of these ideas also relate to people who have a disability, or for anyone that has ever felt different before. And that's also another beautiful part about my social impact initiative is I focus heavily on disabilities, but feeling different and feeling excluded is something that we see in a day-to-day basis in our society every single day, no matter if it's race, color, or gender. And so I can highlight that in many different ways, but I've used those disability simulations and have turned them into a remote activity that I've done many, many times during my second year as Miss Wisconsin. I've read a lot of books. I have a couple of them here. These are a couple of my favorites. I have Just Because, and I have Tom's Special Talent. So for the little ones, I like to read these books and then have a little discussion after. But I think just being open-minded and listening to people's stories, especially those who do have a disability or those who have experienced being a part of people that do have a disability in their lives, is also super important. So that's what's worked for me. And I think it's been a great message to spread across the state.
Yes, that's amazing. And to give people a tangible experience to understand what it feels like to have a disability, and also not to make them feel pity or feel bad about people having a disability and not being able to perform in the same way with fine motor skills. It sounds like that's what you really focused on with that activity, but just to give them that different perspective and to give a little grace, to be a little bit more understanding and open. And then even maybe if they have any accommodations that they can make when they realize that happening for a person with disability, and knowing that they might have an extra challenge or an extra hurdle. So how can I, as a person who is non-disabled, help them achieve success in whatever that looks like for them? So I think that that's an incredible activity that you came up with, and you can definitely tell that you're a teacher.
It shows, does it? Does it show a little bit?
Making that, because I think that when kids can do something, they retain that information and that knowledge so much better. So that sounds like an amazing opportunity that you gave them, even virtually. And most likely people have those winter gloves somewhere in their house, so I'm sure they could find them. So as we're wrapping up today, what is one message that you either have in the past like to share with your viewer or people that you spoke to, or something that you want people from our episode to take away from our conversation today? What do you want them to remember about inclusion and advocacy for people with disabilities?
Well, when I think about inclusion, I automatically go back to when I started the football camp. And I vividly remember this one experience where we were doing the football camp, and how that kind of works is that the UW-Whitewater football players, they set up drills and skills for the Special Olympics athletes to partake in, and they do it together. And while the camp was happening, one of the Special Olympics athletes and a couple of the football players were having a conversation, and they were fighting over the Packers and the Bears. And obviously that's a very long rivalry, and NFL football is who's better, the Packers or the Bears in the Midwest. And it was just really great to see that conversation happen. And then later on, I heard some of the football players as they walked away that they were like, wow, I didn't realize how much I had in common with those guys. They were really cool. And you could see that a friendship was being developed there, and that there was some walls being brought down in the fact of the scary unknown of, I don't know who this person is. They have a disability. They might not be like anybody else. But just having that open conversation really opened their eyes to creating a friendship, or to be open-minded about people with disabilities. And that's what I want to share to your audience, is that be open-minded. Don't be scared of the unknown, and take a chance of just meeting someone new and finding out about who they are, because you're going to know that you're going to have so much more alike than you are different with them. And that's how we create inclusion, is by creating more exposure and creating more opportunities for inclusiveness.
Absolutely. That is a great story. And you're right too. There's a lot of stereotypes about people with disabilities, and it can create judgments, and then in effect that can create a huge barrier for a lot of people who don't know how to even start an interaction. But it's really great that you had that conversation. You were able to moderate those conversations. It was fun, and you got to break down some barriers and some walls. And in what ways do you hope to continue making an impact beyond your years now as Miss Wisconsin? What are some goals that you have for yourself?
Oh gosh. Well, after being a state title holder, it opens up so many doors in your head. You're like, wow, I mean, I could do anything. But I obviously want to continue to work with people with disabilities. Now, I don't know if that's going to be in the capacity of being a teacher forever, but one of my main goals that I've always had since I've been a part of Special Olympics and working with the Unified Champion Schools program is working for that program on a national level. So working for Special Olympics in DC would be amazing. I've just seen such growth with the program and what I've done as a state title holder, and I would like to provide my experiences to many different organizations that are a part of Special Olympics and grow the program even more, because inclusiveness is so important, and teaching our young children that at the age that they are at is important to me.
That is great. And we will be cheering you on from the sidelines, of course.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for visiting with us on Spectrum Sundays. And thank you, Alyssa. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to learn more about her projects, you can find her on Instagram at ABOHM30 and on Facebook at Alyssa Marie. Thank you everyone, and we will see you next Sunday.
Thank you for listening to Spectrum Sundays. We are your hosts, Francesca D'Alessandro, Miss Thousand Islands.
And Miss Pennsylvania, Megan Sinisi. Please make sure to subscribe to our series and follow us on social media to stay connected to autism professionals and self-advocates.
And remember, true impact is accomplished through active listening and exploring the world through a variety of perspectives.
Join us next week on Spectrum Sundays to help cultivate a community of inclusion, appreciation, and acceptance around autism.